Money flows to things that people are unconscious of. So if they have a KiwiSaver, for example, realize that their money is going into weapons manufacturing or going into pornography or gambling or tobacco or to companies that violate human rights or to animal cruelty. People don't kind of connect up the parts of their lives which will enable them to realize their full impact. If I had any kind of wish, it would be that everyone is kind of intentional or mindful.
What if your KiwiSaver was quietly funding the things you would never stand for, like weapons, tobacco, fossil fuel, and you can change that in minutes? Welcome back to Care Beyond Profits. I'm Azura Ali, and in this episode, I'm joined by Barry Coates. Barry is the founder and CEO of Mindful Money. It's a charity helping Kiwis invest with purpose through transparency and ethical finance. I loved how Barry shared that an informed investor is an ethical investor, and how caring combined with strategy becomes one of the most powerful forces for change. We talk about turning finance into a tool for good, patience needed for impact, and how hope still drives them after decades in sustainability. If this speaks to you, please like, share, and subscribe to Care Beyond Profits. Let's get into it. Barry, before we jump in, I want to start with your journey. So for those who are listening, can you start with who is Barry?
Oh, gee. A fairly tortuous journey. I'm a Kiwi. I was born in Auckland, lived in a few other places in New Zealand, but got an undergrad degree in economics and didn't really know what to do with it. So actually ended up living in Samoa, in the Pacific, as a volunteer for a number of years, and then directly working with the Samoan government. Went into the commercial world for a few years and entered the Yale University Masters in Management program, Management and Finance in 1984, and stayed on in the United States for 5 years after that in a kind of a think tank come consulting firm that consulted to big US companies, but also did public policy work on economic development for governments. So really interesting, and that was a particular interest of mine as to what kind of government policy could proactively help a kind of balanced and sustainable form of economic development. So I got more interested in the sustainability and environmental side and ended up moving from the US to the UK at the time of the Earth Summit. Some of your listeners may recall it's a very long time ago now, 1992, but I was on the British government delegation while I was working for WWF, and that was a fascinating time because it was really and then it was the biggest world conference it ever been, and it was all about putting human need and environment together, and it's really where the whole term sustainability came from. It's where the climate convention came from. Uh, it's where the biodiversity convention and a lot of different initiatives. So after that, I stayed on in the UK working with a number of really great people, including Jonathan Porritt, who comes to New Zealand quite a lot, and spawned initiatives around local government, around business sustainability, around sustainability and international trading issues, and so on. And one of those was around ethical investing. And fast forward, I ended up moving more into the international development field in the UK, came back to New Zealand as head of Oxfam for 11 years, and worked a lot in the Pacific Islands around supporting development there. And then I went to University of Auckland and started a sustainability program there, and left there to go into Parliament for a year as a Green Party list MP when one of the MPs stepped down, and it was before a rather tumultuous election for the Green Party, and suddenly I wasn't in Parliament anymore. And at that stage, I thought about it. I wanted to go back to this area of ethical investment and started my current organization called Mindful Money at that stage. So, kind of rather tortuous route. There's been a few other things alongside, but that's the main story.
And what made you start your organization? What was your why?
I have since I got bitten by the sustainability and climate change bug in the early 1990s. That's been my why, and I've looked for more effective ways to be able to progress that agenda. So a lot of it through international negotiations, and then I really decided that wasn't a very productive use of my time, and then through economic issues and a lot of work around the economic drivers of sustainability, etc., interface with the economy, then sort of decided that maybe wasn't it. So entered politics with that idea, and then decided that definitely wasn't it for me. And so I came back to this entry point of finance because I think the old adage of money makes the world go round is absolutely true. And finance is such a strong driver of activity. And so this then became what I think is one of the most powerful leverage points into making a better world. And so what we did initially with the entry to this is we did public surveys to find out what people thought about ethical investment. It's been very much a niche for many years, and we found that people lacked objective information and they lacked the ability to be able to compare across their options. And so we established Mindful Money as a way to enable that to happen. So we provide transparency about investments, and we give people a way to compare across their different financial options. And for most people, their entry point is through KiwiSaver funds, but it may also be through other managed investment funds. So that's what we do. We provide that transparency. We provide the information about what companies in their portfolio do, uh, and uh, and then what we find is that people who are informed typically are also ethical investors. So an informed investor is an ethical investor from our experience. So we've so far had around 500,000 New Zealanders use our website. So we're getting there as a relatively small charity, getting the word
Mm.
out. We're reaching out to a fairly large population, and it's we think it's making a substantial difference to the way people think about investment, but also to the ways that the fund managers responding to that public demand.
That's beautiful, Barry. Thank you for explaining that. In terms of values, let's drill down a little bit more on that because I want to get to know Barry a bit more and I want the audience to hear, who's leading this organization. So, if I was to ask you, Barry, what would be one value that you would not compromise, even if no one was watching? What would that be for yourself?
I think the value of it's a little bit like the name of your podcast, caring. So caring for the environment, caring for people. That for me that thing about being a good person has caring at its core, and it doesn't make me a kind of a complete softy and sort of willing to do stupid things for the sake of caring, because I think there's a way to combine caring with skill, with strategy, with passion, and to really make things happen. So that's kind of, I guess, where it is, and then it has its offshoots into uh, a passion for the environment, and I love the ocean. Go swimming in the ocean even during winter, and I'm passionate about ab- about helping people, and so that those are sort of spring from that caring root.
And the work that you do, Barry, it's not easy for people to navigate this, even though, sometimes people refer to care as a soft skill. It's actually a very hard skill sometimes.
Yeah.
And I always wonder when people like yourself go out there and establish these firms, and a lot of the times we wonder, what was the one person or one thing that really drives you? And can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I guess it was some of the experiences around an environment when I was young, but also I did come back to that kind of first summit in 1992 as a pivotal process, because for me as a relatively young person in those days, I saw what was on the table, and what was on the table was this absolutely historic opportunity, and the opportunity was to support the poorer countries in the world to look after their environment, and provide some financing to do so, um, and for the richer countries to transition their consumption more towards sustainability. And I could see at that stage the tremendous benefits that would come for that in terms of quality of life, in terms of quality of our environment, in terms of people not getting sick because of toxic chemicals or pollution, the tackling climate change. And this is 1992. This is stuff is not new that we're talking about now. This is 33 years ago. And at that stage, that kind of historic opportunity was on the table, and it was spurned, and it was kind of typified by George Bush Senior, who said the American way of life is not up for negotiation. And that was a kind of attitude that people were looking at it as a zero sum game. The fact that I lose, you win, and still international negotiations are played in that way. And it's so frustrating because I win, you win. This is a cooperative effort, and there are so many opportunities uh, to do things which are for the benefit of the environment, for the benefit of people, benefit of business, benefit for the economy. But people have the mindset to say, "Oh no, I don't like these environmentalists. I'm gonna kind of change these policies to because I don't agree with the environmentalists, or environmentalists saying, "Oh no, those are business people or wealthy people," and it's these fixed mindsets that really get in the way of exploring the richness of the win-win opportunities that there are. And I guess if there's anything formative, it's that all of these opportunities are open to us, and my frustration is that we keep on turning away from them.
Would there something about the younger self that would say, this Barry is, I'm surprised at this Barry? Do you think if you wind back to the 33 years ago moment?
Well, the younger self would probably say I compromise too much, and I'm far too kind to those who are blocking progress. So that would probably be the dominant one. My younger self was fairly impatient and a little bit more radical, and so but I can take that. It's a sort of something that happens when you age.
It's a lot of wisdom coming through right there, Barry. In terms of our listeners who are maybe, experiencing something, and if they're really wanting to move forward with something, is there any insights from your experience of setting up and, fighting for what you wanted to that you want to share with anyone who's listening?
Yeah, a lot of people come to me and say, "Hey, I want to do something good," and I'm at a stage in my career where kind of making money for somebody else, and just doesn't really cut it anymore, and I'd like something that rewards me, as a person, for my values, and the thing with today's world is there are so many opportunities to do that. and to get paid for it and get an income for it. And it may not be quite as high as the big financial bonuses and high salaries, but actually you can live well and do stuff which you feel really good about. And by the way, it's good for your happiness, good for your relationships, good for your health, good for your, you know, there's a lot of personal reasons why that's a very good set of choices. And I just encourage anyone who's sitting there thinking, oh, maybe I'm not happy in my job and maybe I'm not feeling fulfilled. Yeah, and embrace the feeling and look around for what really fills you with a sort of passion and an inspiration, and you find so much needs to be done, but also so many exciting ways to do it.
That's beautiful. I loved how you touched on some of those mindsets and the impact beyond just the dollars. And I'd love to hear, was there any mindset shift that you actually had to unlearn in this process?
Ooh, I guess that sometimes that lack of patience and uh, the kind of wanting things to change quickly and maybe not being patient enough with the processes of change. But I think over time, certainly through Mindful Money, we work kind of very well with financial institutions, even those who aren't really on the ethical investment path at all. Uh, we obviously have some good relationship with those who are leading and sort of setting new standards and providing the inspiration for others. But my the thing that I'm happy about is we're also bringing along those who aren't nearly kind of that far along in their journey. And interestingly, on the issue of ethics and investment or sustainability and investment, um, most people and most institutions are somewhere along that spectrum, and they kind of recognise that it's being done, and you see it across uh, sustainability more broadly in the business community. That actually it's not really should we be doing this. It's more about you know how fast we should go, to what extent, what should we do about the trade-offs, and um, so it's helping move the spectrum is important, not just supporting the leaders.
I love that. And you touched on sustainability. I want to look at the sustainability part in terms of your well being and driving something for the long haul in terms of energy management in your own focus. So, was there anything that you used to overcomplicate, but now you look at it and say it's actually more simplified? And how do you keep yourself working on something?
Well, yes, there's a great temptation to descend into depths of detail in kind of anything around sustainability and finance and business. So I do communicate, have to communicate to the public, and that requires being brutally kind of simple and giving people entry points, um, but also giving people hope. It's kind of like there's a lot of things happening particularly in a natural environment where you look at it and you say we're in deep trouble on climate change. Things are going to get a whole lot worse, and yet people are still continuing as if it's some kind of progressive thing that might get a little bit worse. We might have a few more storms, a few more places get flooded, people, a few more wildfires, a few more droughts. Actually, things might get worse a lot more quickly than that. And so, that gives me a kind of a feeling of alarm and doom. But on the other hand, working around the environment, you see how quickly the environment can bounce back if the conditions that harm the environment are taken away. And don't know if people have seen David Attenborough's recent film on ocean, but as he says, you basically take away the kind of the pollution, the acidification, the ocean warming, the bottom trawling, the seabed mining, the overfishing, etc. Oceans will bounce back really quickly, in a matter of a few years. And so on the environmental side, that's the hope. If anything, my concern comes for the social side, where we are living in a far more unequal world where just so many kids are not getting a decent start in life. And I think that kind of damage, the social damage, the individual damage, is far harder to kind of bounce back from because there's intergenerational problems, intergenerational poverty, intergenerational ill health, etc., that really should be a worry to all of us. And it's not good for society. It's not good for New Zealand society. It's not good for any society. And that's our earning capacity. That's who we are as a people. If we don't pay attention to that, then then New Zealand will be a place where we look back and say, "Gosh, what happened to our society?"
Mm.
And you look at societies with very fractured and conflict-ridden relations, uh, typified these days by the United States, and it's not the New Zealand society that we know, and I
Mm.
worry about that, and so that's the area that actually gives me more concern. But I'm still kind of optimistic that we collectively will manage to find our way as kind of a unique and wonderful race of people here in Aotearoa, that we'll find our unique pathway, and we'll be proud of our nation and our society. So that keeps giving me hope.
I love that optimism. Barry, a lot of what you've just spoken about can be quite overwhelming for someone. And I just wanted to dive into your own inner, I guess, tools and tips that you've got for people that are listening. When things feel a bit overwhelming, is there a habit or practice that you've always centered towards in your own life that maybe someone else who's listening can apply to theirs? And tell us a little bit more about that and how do you navigate that for yourself?
It used to be a fair bit of running and exercise and so on when I was younger. In my older age, I'm really enjoying deep water swimming, and
Wow.
in a wetsuit like now when it gets a little cold. But that sort of feeling is important. Um, uh, Family, people, relationship, kids. That's kind of a bedrock, and friends. I also meditate and follow a some basic meditation practices, which I find great because they help clear out the network of distractions as is known, and enables me to be calm and have uh, to more focus, more clarity about things. As they say in the meditation circles around the single pointed mind, being able to concentrate on something, and we live in a society where we're bombarded with so much stuff that it's very hard for people to be able to clear away and actually concentrate on something and with a calm mind. And so that's been really helpful for me.
You touched on the fact that you've got family and friends around you. Was there one person that really believed in you from the start and still around for you at the moment? And if not, is there another person that's replaced it?
Yeah. From my start, it was my parents, of course, and I was lucky and have two sisters who I love very much, and I'm in I'm in a great marriage, and so that's really helpful. So yeah, and there have been some inspirations in people that I've met along the way, and have been fortunate in meeting some really remarkable people along the journey. Uh, doing work in the UK and internationally put me in touch with some simply remarkable human beings, and that was pretty inspirational.
And balancing work and personal life can be tough, especially in demanding fields. So, is there any advice that you want to give the listeners in terms of balancing your own personal life as well as the business life?
Oh, I don't think I'm very good at that actually, Ezra. I do work way too hard. Um, uh, uh, but but uh, uh, but you got to kind of recognize your limits and be able to let go and enjoy life, because if you don't, particularly in a field that like I'm in around sustainability and climate change, you burn yourself out so quickly. And I have had so many wonderful people I've worked with over the years who um, didn't heed that and burnt themselves out at a much younger age. And so I'm very happy that I've been able to at least maintain enough balance. Never,
Thank you,
never, never,
thank you
never
very.
quite balance. It's kind of like this
Yeah.
something that's like a tolerable imbalance.
I like how you worded that tolerable imbalance. I want to shift a little bit to the work that you do because I think it's very powerful, and there's a lot that we can take away from that. So I just want to start with a question for you. If you could take one wand and solve all the challenges, what would that look like?
I think sort of in the field of finance, that if you look at where money flows, money flows to things that will often kind of people are unconscious of. So if they have a KiwiSaver, for example, they don't realize that their money is going into weapons manufacture or going
Mm.
into pornography or gambling or tobacco or to companies that violate human rights or to animal cruelty. And people don't kind of connect up the parts of their lives which will enable them to realize their full impact. So the KiwiSaver and the returns you get from KiwiSaver and the savings and so on, that's in one part of your brain, and the things that you love and your values tends to be in another part of your brain. And so what we're trying to do at Mindful Money is help connect those, and to we use transparency to show for free, a very simple, easy, and accessible for free. Anyone who goes on to www.mindfulmoney.nz gets to see where their KiwiSaver goes, and when they do that tends to kind of help wake them up to that lack of connection between what they do and where their money flows. So if I had any kind of wish, it would be that everyone is kind of intentional or mindful about where money flows to, because I think if they knew and they had the full choices, then much more money would be flowing to the things that create positive impacts in society rather than negative impacts. We wouldn't be spending so much money on some of the things that cause major problems and pollute the environment and cause climate change and produce plastics that are clogging our oceans and the food chain. And they would actually be spending more of their investment and their funding um, on things that they feel good about. And these days, it's not even the case that the bad things are more profitable. Often,
Mm.
actually, the bad things aren't so profitable. That you only have to look at the difference between generating electricity from coal or from gas or oil. These days, it's so much cheaper to generate it from from solar cells, from solar photovoltaic. So much cheaper. But there are still barriers in the way
Mm.
to doing that. And so there's a lot of money still flowing to the fossil fuel companies. And the danger with that is that sooner or later, fossil fuel demand is will fall and will fall quite sharply. And it's already started to do that. And all of those people that have invested all their money in fossil fuels will suddenly wake up and find themselves in a declining industry where all of the things that that industry relies on, pipelines and oil wells and that storage tanks and so on, they're not going to be worth so much. And so already we're seeing uh, the sort of value of fossil fuel companies go down over a period of time, and investment flowing more and more into renewable energy. But most people don't know where their money is invested. And if they did, then they'd probably want to put a little bit more into the growing, cost-effective kind of industries of the future, like solar, rather than into kind of coal companies and oil and gas companies, which are part of the past.
And what are some of the bottlenecks that you're experiencing currently? Because you mentioned most people don't know. And is there any barriers or bottlenecks that you're currently experiencing?
Lots and lots. Yeah. So at the personal level, it's people not having the information, not having had the financial literacy when they were younger to be able to really understand these issues. Politically, there are all sorts of barriers. One of them, who's got the money,
Mm.
and very often, who's got the money are the industries that are currently kind of dominating, and they tend to put their money into towards the kind of political parties and the political influence and the lobbying that will skew the regulations in their direction. And I think we're seeing that in the United States at the moment,
Mm.
and sadly in New Zealand as well. And I think the corrosive effect of the established industries on politics means that's a major barrier to getting change, and change that would be for the good of everyone. So almost everyone. So that kind of barrier, I think, is also important, and often for companies, again, it's kind of mindset change that there's a process of electrification, for example, going on in New Zealand, but actually a lot of people look at it from a perspective, oh, I don't know about these electric cars,
Mm.
or I don't know about these, switching over to solar panels on my roof or something else, and they carry all this kind of embedded baggage, and I think that often gets in the way of them taking good, well-informed decisions, which will help them for the future.
And is there any advice you would give, business owners that are currently navigating the marketplace in terms of these decisions?
Oh, I think to re-examine your assumptions and your own barriers, and to rethink where the opportunities are, and to stop thinking about the trade-offs of kind of, oh, I do this environmentally and it might cost me a bit more. Well, actually, maybe your revenues will go up by twice that amount. Maybe that's an opportunity rather than a threat. And I think people often kind of, again, have this kind of win-lose
Mm.
attitude around the environment and sustainability rather than the win-win, looking for positive solutions where actually they can gain from the changes that they make rather than regarding it as an imposition or a cost. And I think that mindset is happening in the leading companies. It just worries me that there are a whole lot of others who are sitting
Mm.
there kind of saying, oh, no, 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 don't like that stuff. That's new. And we actually need people to think freshly around this and see where the opportunities are. Um, and that affects farming in New Zealand. That actually,
Mm.
it's not about what kind of regulation we have or targets we have for methane on farms. What's actually far more important is what European consumers want. And if European consumers want their dairy products produced sustainably, then I'm sorry, if we're going to sell our products to the European Union and, by the way, get some premium prices, then we're going to have to change. And it's seeing the opportunities in these changes, seeing the opportunities by being, maybe New Zealand can go back to our clean green image, which is rapidly being eroded, and we can earn some premium for being ahead of the rest of the world on climate change and sustainability, rather than looking at it as a cost and something that we do reluctantly.
And Barry, have you ever experienced in your personal journey a time when you've had to make a decision between a cost and a value? Have you had that conflict in your, and would you mind sharing something for us?
Oh, yeah, all the time. Personally, is kind of like when 2016, when I was looking around for a car, it was kind of like uh, you go and look at cars and you think, oh yeah, these new electric vehicles. It's kind of, maybe it's going to cost me a bit more, and so in the end, I probably paid a little bit more. I paid $21,000 for a 2015 Nissan Leaf, and
Ah,
and
that was my
uh,
first one too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You take these decisions, and I reckon I've saved myself more than $21,000 in terms of fuel savings over the time that I've had the car, and it's still going. It's the battery efficiency's gone down a little bit, but I'm still driving it, still very happy with it. So you take these cost versus future benefit trade-offs, and typically with the environment and decisions around there, it's a short-term cost versus a long-term benefit. And I think for so many people, they get stuck on the short term cost. But for a lot of people also who are doing it hard, it is difficult to take those
Mm.
decisions because it's a real cost, and if they're struggling to put food on the table for them and their kids, then yes, they are, really constrained by some of those costs. But I think for many others, it's just a reluctance to be a little bold and say, yeah, yeah, I can take that decision. It's a good idea.
And for business leaders, what do you think separates the ones that succeed long term from those that don't?
I think it is a long-term vision and the ability to look over the horizon a bit. You've still got to be a good manager. You've still got to kind of keep people accountable for what they're doing. But if you can help people see where you're going and see what it is you're trying to achieve, and have them buy into um, the direction you're going and your targets, and be inspired by what you could be achieving. I mean, that's, for me, that's leadership as opposed to management. And I think that um, it doesn't work for everyone. Um, I recognize that, but for me, that really is the sweet spot, because you not only kind of can have a good strategy for the organization, but it's immensely motivating for staff, and for suppliers and customers and everyone else who you can help buy into to what you're trying to do.
Was there any decisions that you actually ignored in your journey that you're now glad you did?
Oh, yes. Yeah, lots of those. Staying in politics was one of those. That it was not a natural fit for me, so I was very happy not to be in politics anymore. There are various stages where I've kind of had offers to go kind of into mainstream with big consulting firms, or big companies, or the United Nations, even the government, and I'm very happy in the end that I've landed at a kind of um, an age where some other people might retire. where actually I'm building this fantastic new charity, which is kind of changing things and being really helpful to people about their money, and I'm energized about it, and I have no intention of retiring while I'm having fun. It's kind of like, and if I was in another role, then I would not be having so much fun.
Oh, that's very inspirational, Barry. Before we close off, since you're so inspired by your work, I want to ask you, looking ahead, what is your next big goal and where do you want to go, both in business and life?
Next goal for mindful money is we've spent a lot of time telling people about how to avoid their investing in some really bad stuff. It's kind of things that just aren't aligned with their values. We're now in the process of being able to tell people that you can invest in the good things, and we can show them that in their KiwiSaver or in their investment fund. So it's the counterpoint of that, to be able to say, here's where you can draw some inspiration. And funnily enough, we ask a question in our annual surveys, and we say to people, if you knew your money was actually producing benefits for the environment and society, would you save more money? And the answer was yes. And that's for a majority of the population. It's kind of like, so that's the kind of thing that we want to tap into and give people the inspiration as well. And so, that's one thing. We have aspirations to globalize mindful money, which would be fun. Um, that might take a few more years here. Um,
Mm.
uh, Personally, I'd really like to swim further than I'm swimming at the moment, and hopefully
And for
not
our
end up
listeners,
with this.
how long is that, Barry?
Oh, I'm only swimming a few kilometers at the moment, so it's kind of. But I am rather in awe of people who do 20 or 50 kilometer swims, and so I also wish my tennis got better too. It's been a while. So those kind of things, and uh, they're relatively modest personal aspirations, but they're what kind of helps me be happy, along with having a great family and friends.
Barry, thank you so much for joining me on this. I really enjoyed listening to your stories, and I know that there's a lot of value you've shared today. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation and got as much out of it as I did. As always, if this episode speaks to you, please like, share, and subscribe to Care Beyond Profits. I appreciate you, and until next time, keep caring beyond profits.